My 30F sister, 27F, didn't tell me her girlfriend, 33F, is trans. Now it's caused a family rift. My younger sister and I have always been very close, both growing up and as adults. Usually, we tell each other absolutely everything. I know everyone says that, but it's absolutely true in this case. For Christmas this past weekend, we grew up Russian Orthodox. Our parents invited my sister and her girlfriend over to the family dinner. They've only been together for a few months, but had a long talking stage and my sister is smitten. This is a massive step for our parents because they had an extremely difficult time accepting that my sister is a lesbian. They refused to talk to her for 2 years, and when they did finally start talking to her again, they refused to acknowledge her sexuality at all. They never wanted to meet her ex-girlfriend for the 4 years they were together. They refused to acknowledge they were even dating even though they lived together. My sister hasn't been invited to any family events, dinners or parties for the past 8 years. Only for the Christmas celebrations, at which talking about her sexuality was strictly forbidden. So needless to say, her girlfriend not only being invited, but being acknowledged as her romantic partner is a massive deal. The dinner seemed to be going well. My parents seemed to be making an effort with her girlfriend. But throughout the night my mood started to drop a little and I was a little grumpy. When my sister's girlfriend asked me if I was okay at the table, my parents weren't at the table at this time. I assured her I'd be fine. I had just started my period, and I have a heavy flow and killer cramps. Looking back on it, she did look kind of uncomfortable, and my sister kind of tried to cut me off, but I didn't notice at the time. I ended by asking, "You know how it is. Do you ever get that?" And she kind of laughed it off a little uncomfortably and said, No, I don't really get that." I thought it was kind of weird, but I didn't say anything. Later, privately, her girlfriend told me she's a trans woman and doesn't get periods. I felt like such an idiot. I never would have talked about it if I had known. Perhaps this is ignorant of me, but she passes so incredibly well that I had assumed she was a cis woman. I also was hurt that my sister didn't trust me enough to tell me beforehand. She usually tells me everything. Later, after her girlfriend had left, I pulled my sister aside to tell her that while I like her girlfriend a lot, it really hurt my feelings that she didn't trust me enough to tell me. She told me that she does trust me, it's just that this particular thing wasn't hers to tell. We argued, and I guess our arguing got too loud because our parents came to tell us to cut it out. They overheard what we were arguing about. They barged in, and started yelling homophobic and transphobic nonsense, and kicked my sister out. I've tried explaining to them, but they're absolutely not having it. They won't talk to my sister, they've stopped talking to me for letting myself be dragged down. My sister won't talk to them, and she won't talk to me either because understandably, she feels betrayed. She won't answer my texts, calls or let me in when I tried going to her place. Even her roommate has stopped taking my calls. I never intended any of this to happen. IDK what to do. Too long did not read. Our extremely conservative and religious Russian parents were finally starting to come around to my gay sister's sexuality, until I accidentally outed her girlfriend as trans. Now they're threatening to disown her, and no one is speaking to anyone, and my sister, who is my best friend, won't talk to me. I know I'm in the wrong here and I don't know how to make the situation better. Edit to add. Just to be clear, I am aware I'm in the wrong here, that's not what I'm asking here. I am, always have and always will defend my sister against our parents. Always. If your parents disown your sister, perhaps it's time you go no contact with them. Give you sister time. Although you didn't mean to put her girlfriend, you did, and your sister was right not to tell you. It isn't hers to tell and you should understand that. She's now dealing with a lot of fallout and it may take time for her anger to subside. Although you didn't do it on purpose, you still did it. Hey, guess what? It's none of your business until her girlfriend tells you. It isn't your sister's place to tell you. But, also, your ignorant family is what caused the rift. F30, M33. Husband thinks I'm selfish for making him wait before trying to conceive. Hi everyone, I need some advice. My husband and I have been fighting so much the past few months. We had a difficult last few years with 2 miscarriages and 1 baby who passed in the hospital after birth. We've been marriages for 5 years and no children. We got married when I was 24 and he was 27. He wanted children right away, but I wasn't ready and asked him to wait. Even with the 3 pregnancies I wasn't completely ready, but I knew how much he wanted a baby and I wanted to give that to him. In our recent fights he told me that I'm selfish and didn't respect him because I made him wait a few years before trying to have a baby, and he is making me feel bad about it. When I was pregnant with my first baby, we had a big fight and he is now blaming me for not calming down and stressing my body when he initiated the fight. I'm so hurt that he is saying all this now and trying to blame me for the miscarriage. Even after my third pregnancy, I wasn't sure if I can go through another pregnancy again mentally and physically, but I wanted to do it for him. But now, after hearing all these accusations, I don't know anymore. I love him, but I'm so hurt. I am scared that he will just blame me in the future if we don't have a baby. This is not the man to have kids with. Anyone that would treat you this way after the trauma you've gone through is not the one. Take your love for him out of it. If you read your post and it was written by a stranger, what would you say to them? What kind of life would this child have, just being brought into the world to satisfy your husband? What damage to your body is being wrought? Is he married to you, or is your only real value to him your womb? These are questions you need to unpack in counseling. Go on your own, without him. You need support. This is awful. I am so sorry you are going through this. I would be seriously rethinking this relationship, but go to counseling and think it over there, with support. Your husband is not on your team. Are you sure that you should stay married to him? He sounds mean, cruel and unreasonable. Do not have kids with this man. Sounds like you're just a uterus to him. I, 28M. am caught between my wife, 33F, and mom, 42F, on grandchild access. My wife, 33F, and I, 28M, have been married for 2 years and are expecting our first child in August. My wife and mom, 42F, have always had a polite but somewhat distant relationship since they were introduced. Mom's age is not a typo. She had a very difficult childhood and had me when she was 14. Although I wish they had a warmer relationship, I understand that not all in-laws become close and didn't want to force anything, especially as we live about 1,000 miles from mom and I am still able to have my own relationship with her. I assumed that the main issue is that my wife and mom are fairly close in age, which made things a bit awkward. My wife had previously just said that they didn't click, or that she felt awkward around my mom. Despite having me so young, my mom has been a wonderful, single parent. I know that my origins are unfortunately the result of abuse from an older person, but that when she was pregnant, a friend's parents took us in, which allowed her to finish high school and then attend college. Once she finished college, she was able to get a good job as a financial analyst and we moved to our own place, and then she was just like any other mom if a bit younger. Our home was always warm and loving. I provide this as background info to confirm that my mom did engage in any toxic or hurtful behavior. The one issue my mom had was that, because she was focused on trying to figure out how to support and raise me, she did not really deal with the effects of the abuse she suffered. She did not use substances, but did develop a food addiction and became super morbidly obese, close to 500 pounds by the time she was in her mid-30s. I was in college by this time. When I was a kid she gradually got heavier, but I don't remember that it negatively impacted my childhood. Her addiction was more of a private thing and she did cook healthy, balanced meals and encouraged me to stay active and play sports. I did not and have never had a weight problem myself. When she hit her high weight, mom realized she needed help and finally got the therapy needed to address her trauma. She lost 200+ pounds over the next couple years and has gradually lost more weight since then, and even took up hiking and walking marathons. Now she is about 225 pounds, which is still obese, but not morbidly so. She is 5 feet 10 inches, which means she is technically about 50 pounds overweight, but her medical and therapy team think she is in a great place from where she has been. My wife is pretty anti-fat because her father was overweight and died of a heart attack when she was 12. And now that my wife is pregnant, she is saying she does not want our child to have any relationship with my mom, unless my mom loses weight down to a BMI of 25 or less. She says that if something happens to my mom because of her weight it will be too traumatic, plus she is worried our child will be exposed to an unhealthy lifestyle. I understand my wife's fears, but I think this is very unfair to my mom, because, my mom's medical team doesn't recommend additional weight loss, and especially would not recommend trying to crash diet and lose 50 pounds in 6-7 months to meet my wife's requirement, and, b. my mom does maintain a healthy and active lifestyle as evidenced by her 275-pound weight loss that she has maintained for some years now. My wife isn't budging and I don't want to put stress on her and argue with her while she is pregnant. She is having a horrible time with morning sickness, but I know my mom will be heartbroken if she doesn't get to have a relationship with her grandchild. How should I sort this out? Too long did not read. My pregnant wife doesn't want my mom to have a relationship with our child because my mom is overweight and my wife is afraid that either my mom will die young and traumatize our child or that my mom will be a bad influence. I think this is unfair because my mom has already lost over 200 pounds even if she still remains somewhat overweight, and she does have a healthy and active lifestyle. I would love some advice on how to sort through the priorities here. Your wife needs therapy. Banning a relationship with your mom until she's at what your wife considers the correct BMI is just batshit crazy. My pregnant wife doesn't want my mom to have a relationship with our child because my mom is overweight and my wife is afraid that either my mom will die young and traumatize our child or that my mom will be a bad influence. If your mother had a heart condition or diabetes or some other condition that might lead to a younger than average death, would she want to avoid a relationship between grandparent and grandchild? If your wife found out you had a condition that might shorten your life, would you be banished from the child's life in case you died and they were sad? This is ridiculous. She is being incredibly unreasonable. Girlfriend, 27F, is constantly inappropriate. I'm 30M, trying to understand why. When I've brought things up, she says things along the lines of, "I didn't know that would bother you." And then stops for a while, but something similar occurs after a while. To be fair, I knew she was lewd before we got together, but I thought it might slow down in a relationship. I'm really searching for reasons she might behave this way. So some examples of what I mean by inappropriate. Most of her profile pictures on social media are her body without her face, whether it be a gif of her boobs bouncing, her butt, etc. Facebook is the exception. She frequently uses sexual innuendos with men, things like, "shoot it in my face," when talking to men in online games. One of her main hobbies is drawing hentai. Another of her hobbies is VRChat, a virtual reality game where very lewd avatars hang out. One her avatars has "use me" tattooed on the butt, and I know ERP is a thing in the game. She called me daddy at dinner the first time I met her family. Yesterday I commented on picture of her, and she responded by saying, "breed me," publicly in the comments. She does a lot of twerking, aegao, pics of her body on social media. Her captions on social media are straight up pornographic, but not referencing anyone in specific. Things like, "my safe word is keep going." TLDR girlfriend is super sexual, at inappropriate times. Hi. I work in sexual education counseling. This, to me, sounds like the typical hypersexuality of someone who has undergone trauma or abuse. Specifically the public nature of it and the social media aspects. This may not be the case, but if it is, I'd rather bring attention to it. Called you daddy in front of her family, crying tears of joy, tears of joy, tears of joy. I don't blame you for thinking she might behave differently in a relationship, but now that you know she doesn't, there is no point trying to change her. If you can't find a way to be okay with it, then unfortunately you are not compatible. It isn't really fair to her for blaming her for something you knew, and staying with her and resenting her for her behavior would eventually lead to issues. To be fair, I knew she was lewd before we got together, but I thought it might slow down in a relationship. Why would you think that? When someone shows you who they are, believe them.